Welcome to another edition of the GreenBaje podcast. As always, that is AJ. He's the Green. I'm Ken. I'm the Beige. Back again for the second show in a row. If we had the money, like a lot of the networks, I would be playing the real Slim Shady. Cause we got Justin Marville of this Just In back again. Thank
I
you
wish I
very
wasn't.
much.
I really wish I wasn't.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us
Good
once
to see you again,
more.
Justin.
Wish it was under better circumstances, especially considering the guy in that jersey there. But oh well.
Well, I mean, this week football was back. The first week of the NFL season, it definitely was off to a rollicking start. And if this is what we have to look forward to for the next 18 weeks of the regular season, sign me up, pump that into my veins, please. Because this week was so exciting. It was ridiculous. We had some games that were replays of playoff games from last season. We had playoff teams matching up against each other in the first week of the year. And of course, there's no better place for us to start than last night's game. So, apologies to the viewers. Again, we're recording on Tuesday. So when I said last night, I'm talking about Monday Night Football. When you see this on Wednesday, no, you didn't miss a game on Tuesday night. So yes, the Monday Night Football game was the opening of the Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. We had the Baltimore Ravens coming in to face the now Las Vegas Raiders in their season opener. And that game was incredible. We had three ties in the game at 17 all, 24 all, and 27 all. And the only time, as far as I remember, that the Raiders actually led the game was at the very, very end. So, fellas, I think that's enough of an introduction, enough of a preamble. Justin, again, you are the guest here. You're the second time being a guest, so after this, you're not a guest anymore. So I'll give you first crack. Tell me about the Ravens and the Raiders.
So that was a part of my awful weekend because I think on picks I went 7 and 10, some ridiculous number like that.
Wow.
And I think Jeff Saturday put it up best, the former Colts center. They are asking Lamar Jackson too much, and not by design, but because of all these injuries. I think we talked about it on the last show. There is no J.K. Dobbins, no Justice Hill, no Gus Edwards, no. So essentially, and without the receiver they took in this draft, Lamar Jackson is their entire offense. And for a while, it was working, but you saw those two fumbles lost by Lamar Jackson. For me, essentially decided this game. I know a lot of people would say that, I got to avoid saying Oakland. I know a lot of people said Las Vegas basically won the game, on that first drive in overtime when they just, got on the 1 yard line in the thing in the red zone. But a lot of people forget, again, the fumble in the fourth quarter helped set up that game-tying drive later on. And again, even after the Raiders turned it over in overtime, once again, Lamar Jackson's fumble put them in a position to win the game once more. They won it twice, and I guess in 2 possessions in overtime. And you would say, Lamar Jackson has to learn to protect the football better. That's yes. The reality of the situation, as Jeff Saturday put it, we all want Lamar Jackson to be a more accurate down-the-field passer. The reality of the situation is that offensive line is not put together. It's not structured to pass block. It is to run block. And that is what their strength is. And so now when you're down 3 running backs and you brought in your old running back, Ken, and Latavius Murray, he's going to have to get up to speed. you essentially are asking Lamar Jackson to put the team on his back. And those 2 fumbles at the end that showed you're asking him too much. And that is a game that, in my estimation, the Baltimore Ravens had no right losing.
Interesting. AJ, what is your take on Monday night's festivities?
Well, I had picked the Ravens. I'll let you speak for yourself, but I picked the Ravens to win that game. But then right before, it was like the day before Thursday, whatever day it was that they had was a couple injuries. That practice that Harbaugh ended up calling off because it claimed 2 players. After hearing about that, I won't lie to you, like my mind was beginning to change a little bit, but my pick was already in. So getting into the game now, like I actually genuinely was not surprised with the flow of the game because and as based on some of the things that Justin just said, at this point the Ravens are really asking Lamar to be the offense. They're asking Lamar Jackson to be the offense. They don't have a running back at this point that's up to speed, and that's what they predicate their offense on. I did mention to you in a previous episode that I do like the addition of Sammy Watkins, but Sammy Watkins is not going to be like a bona fide number 1 at this point. He's just a veteran presence in the team. He would still give you a few catches here and there. And he did. If I remember, I cannot recall how many targets he actually had, but he did make one of the big catches last night, right? He did a little bit, but generally their offense did not look good. Apart from Lamar making a few plays of his own, it did not seem like the offense was up to scratch. The Raiders are always going to be that kind of like team that'll claw and gnaw at you, and at least most, if I remember correctly, quite a number of their losses last season were within one possession or something like that, right? So they're always going to be there and abouts, and the game started off real scrappy. It started off really scrappy. That could have been nerves, but just the way it ended and everything, like I was actually doing some work and I had to stop. I was like, nah, this has to wait. This has to wait, because just the way that game ended, man, it was a classic. But like to what Justin said, I think Lamar's been asked to do too much at this point. I genuinely was not surprised with the Raiders' victory in the end. I was kind of disappointed that my pick was wrong, obviously, but I actually wasn't surprised. And I think it was a really good win that they managed to eke out the win.
So I was watching that game and I was actually quite surprised to see how the game was progressing, because it's one thing to know that the Raiders are going to be there or thereabouts offensively. They still have Darren Waller, who it seemed like if Derek Carr was planning to throw everything to him. And then
certainly tried.
Yeah, exactly. And then you had Henry Ruggs, who everybody anticipated coming into the game was going to be the new number 1 for the Raiders. And then he doesn't see a target until the 3rd quarter. So there were lots of questions that I think we still don't quite have proper answers for with regards to the Raiders and their offense. But one thing that is not in question is that Derek Carr is very comfortable with what is happening around him in Las Vegas. And again, Waller is his main target. Now, what happens around him, in terms of the other pass catchers that he has, is still yet to be determined, because we had, I think he's either a rookie or a second year player who got basically all of the catches in the 4th quarter, which got them into position to kick the tying field goal to take it into overtime. A guy that, again, got no targets up until that point. So there are lots of questions that not just us, but others, all of the defensive coordinators now have to try to figure out with regards to the Raiders. What impressed me, though, was the Raiders' defense. The Raiders' defense, which was not very good last season and has not been very good for the entirety of John Gruden's tenure, actually looked good. They were getting after Lamar. They were putting him under pressure. And as somebody said in one of our WhatsApp chats, the addition of Villanueva at the right tackle position. They said that right now he can't even block the sun out of his eyes.
Yeah,
He would.
That was me.
Right. I couldn't remember who it was that
It
said
was
it.
me. It was
But
me.
when I saw that, it was the funniest thing because it was absolutely true. They were beating Villanueva like a snare
Going
drum.
and coming. Going
He
and
was
coming.
he was getting beat like a kettle drum in a top band. He was just getting cut every single time. So they have the Ravens, they have some work to do to shore that offensive line because clearly if you
But
want to do passing stuff, you have to have protection.
and that's what Jeff Saturday was alluding to, that this line isn't built to pass protect. It is built for putting their hands in the ground and getting up the field. And it was clear, I think it was some stat, like 55% of Lamar's dropbacks came under pressure. A lot of these yards that we saw Lamar were not design runs. These were,
It is true.
I have to get out of dodge
Yeah.
because everything just broke down. This line is clearly not like capable of pass blocking. This line is for getting up the field and run blocking, which means that Latavius Murray has to get up to speed quickly because there's no way that you can have Lamar drop back 30 to 40 times a game because you're not going to win any of those games.
It is true. And I was happy. Honestly, I was very happy to see Latavius Murray get into the end zone last night because I did not want him to be cut. I thought he was still a very productive player for the Saints, but I understood why he was cut, and him getting cut allowed us to fill in some holes that we had on the back end. And the rookie that we have, Tony Jones Jr., he looked pretty good, but we'll talk about the Saints later. Let's not steal let's not steal some time away from the other stuff that we want to talk about. So, as we mentioned, there were how many games? 16 games this weekend. So we're going to do a little thing that I want to call the week one blitz. We are going to run through some of these games. So you guys, as we're going through them, you tell me who you believe was, well, actually, let's start with these questions. So I'll start with you, AJ. Who was the biggest winner this week?
I had a few, there are actually a few teams I want to mention, right? Mm-hmm. But let me try to be succinct, and I'll narrow it down to one. For me, the Arizona Cardinals. I'll leave the other options to you, but I'm going to say the Arizona Cardinals. Simply because of this, right? They were on the road. They held Derrick Henry to 58 yards on the ground, right? Mm-hmm. Chandler Jones ensured that Ryan Tannehill is going to be having nightmares about him for the remainder of the season. Right? I mean, it was 5 sacks, right? It's 5, right? Just to confirm.
Yes, 5 sacks.
In one game. I mean, we know Chandler Jones is a beast, but come on. And this is in Tennessee. What else? It was, yeah, it's just the fact that they decimated these men at home. And then, because a lot of the pundits and analysts and so on were talking about the fact that Tennessee, with the addition of Quinn Torres, aka Julio Jones, are now going to be like a contender for the AFC. And this is what happens to them in their first game, to the point where Mike Vrabel breaking down in post-game interviews and cussing out players and things. But we'll talk about that later probably too. The Arizona Cardinals so far my biggest winners for this week. That was an immense win away from home in week 1.
Interesting. Now, Justin, do you agree that the Cardinals were the biggest winner this week?
I would say AJ reminded me that they were huge winners. But if you just take the question at its literal sense, it has to be you, right, Ken? I mean, you had the biggest margin of victory. And no, to be quite honest, I think, yeah, your Saints were the biggest winner this week because a lot of us talking heads, for lack of a better word, we're all in on, well, there's no Drew Brees and there's no Michael Thomas, there's no Jared Cook, there's no Emmanuel Sanders, Tre'Quan Smith was hurt, and you have a question mark with Jameis Winston, and they answered all those questions. It sounds so weird for me to say this with the New Orleans Saints, but that was complimentary football. Like we've seen so often where one side is either carrying the load. Like in Drew Brees' time, it was the offense, and then towards the end, it was his defense. But you saw a great mesh. Like I can't believe that what I saw, like the first thing first, the Saints absolutely dominated both lanes of scrimmage. And if you listen to my show enough or hear me talk, I am not huge on, these sexy playmakers or whatever not. Football is played at the line of scrimmage. And if you win both lanes of scrimmage, you are not going to lose football games. And that's exactly what happened with the Saints. Their offensive line completely blew our defensive line off the line of scrimmage. Like Alvin Kamara was never seen get touched in the backfield. Like it was like 4 or 5 yards before he was getting touched in that first half. Jameis Winston stuck to whatever script. It was just protect the football. Do not be careless. Do not make careless throws. Protect the football. Take what the defense gives you. I have another segment on Joe Barry for another time, but I'm going to wait till half the season before I launch my attacks on Joe Barry. And then the defense. They made us absolutely one-dimensional and without having to blitz or rush more than 4 or 5. And that allowed them to stay, have so many people in the back end and play coverage. And if you follow Aaron Rodgers' career, there's nothing more than he hates than having a crowded defensive backfield. Like he'd rather you blitz him. He'd rather, send the house at him so he could pick you apart in man-to-man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, honestly, when all the doubters or the doubts were surrounding the Saints, after all that offseason, for them to come up with such a huge win, 38-3, a statement win, a win within the conference that may potentially decide seeding, I thought that the New Orleans Saints were clear, by far and away, the biggest winners in week 1.
Well, I had planned to get into the Saints a little bit later, but after you set up this with your soliloquy so eloquently, this is why we had to get you back, Justin, because you were so gung-ho that your Packers were going to dominate my Saints. You said that, the one good thing that we had, the one thing we had working in our favor was that this game was playing in Florida because Aaron doesn't like Florida. But guess what? I mean, this is the season for disruptions for the Saints, apparently, because we have the hurricane. We've been out from our homes now for the last 2 weeks. We're going to be out for at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Now we have a situation with COVID. They said it's 6 coaches, 1 player, and somebody else that was supposedly positive for COVID, but everybody's vaccinated. So right now we're just waiting for the negatives to come, and then they'll be back with the team. But this game, like the Saints, we didn't know where we were going to play up until the Thursday before. So it's not like you have to say we had any real home field advantage. We went to Florida, and all of your GreenBaje Packers.
You didn't even have home field advantage because there are 2 teams that travel extremely well. Would be my Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think any fan base travels better than those 2 teams. So I'm almost certain that 2/3 of that stadium would have been cheering for the Packers. I'm almost certain.
But that's exactly what I was coming to say. I was watching the game, and there were more green and gold in the stands than there were black and gold, that's for sure. And the crowd was keeping more noise when we were on offense than when we were on defense. So we had no home field advantage. But yes, but you see what happened? We went on a neutral venue. We took it to a neutral site. You didn't want to deal with the noise in the dome. You didn't have the dome. We were outside, because that's another thing that they like to say. Since we're a dome team, so therefore when we go outside, there's always be a problem. And guess what? When we went outside, it wasn't the problems. It wasn't the problems. Like Shana said, it's not a problem because everything was gravy. Everything was good. Everything was working even better than I would have ever dreamed. Because, as you made mention, when you look at what was happening in the trenches, the Saints' offensive line was doing whatever they wanted. Alvin Kamara was just running free forevermore. And then, so Jameis is giving you his best Drew Brees impression. So he's getting the ball out. He's doing what he has to do, but he's not really pushing the ball down the field. So everything is just working relatively close to the line of scrimmage. But then Jameis reminds you in the 3rd quarter, this is why I am here. This is what the Saints offense was missing all along for the last 3 years, because Drew Brees, he would have had to take a run up and then throw the ball like a javelin to get it 40 yards down the field. But no, I'm just going to take a step and woof, throw this ball all the way down there, and it breaks out the last touchdown for the Saints. We have Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. It was incredible. I was having so much fun, especially watching my defense pitch the shutout and keep you out of the end zone the entire game. When I saw the stat, because it said that last season Aaron Rodgers threw 5 interceptions, and then he had 2 interceptions in 3 passes. I was like, yes, that is my defense. That is my Saints.
I mean, I have some words to say about the other side, but again, I will never take away anything from the point because, as I said, the thing with Jameis for me was not even the 5 touchdowns. It was the 0 interceptions. It was like the Saints played mistake-free, complimentary football, and it sounds weird to say, like, this, and I think we've just reminded, or Ken's team reminded us that this is a team you cannot count out if you're going to play this type of football. I'm not telling you the Saints are going to be 35-point winners every single week. That's not going to happen.
For sure not.
But playing that brand of football where you're blowing people off of the offensive line, that you're not getting touched 2 or 3 yards downfield, where you don't have to send blitzes to get home or to disrupt the opposing offensive line. You're not turning over the football. You're able to run the football well. You're not making mental miscues on either side of the football or on all 3 phases of the game, actually. This is a team, at least, this is still just week 1, but this is a team clearly that is not going to beat itself once Jameis Winston is committed to playing mistake-free football. And as I said, the Saints were easily the biggest winners of the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And let's also give a shout out just to Jameis himself. Because as you said, Jameis was under control. He didn't try to do too much. He allowed the game to come to him. He didn't have a whole ton of passing yards, but 5 touchdowns tells the story. So that is the biggest winners for this week. Now we go to the biggest loser. Who should feel the worst today? AJ, we'll start with you on this one.
The biggest losers, right? Again, few names run through my mind, but I feel like I need to get this one off my chest. You know who's the biggest losers? You know who are the biggest losers in week 1? The Atlanta Falcons. This team is so annoying and disgraceful. Like they're just bordering on being an all. Well, they kind of are now an also run. But I have no like. What is it? What is the Falcons' game plan week in and week out? Does anyone actually know? Does anyone know what the Falcons' defense has not been good? How many ever years now? The defense has not been good. Their very first pick, and this is something they've been doing, it seems, for the last couple of drafts. Their very first pick is an offensive weapon for Matt Ryan. They decided not to move on from Matt Ryan. Cool. They didn't draft his successor either. So now you have Matt Ryan who's deteriorating right before your eyes, but you're still trying to give him weapons to work with. The defense isn't good. They have absolutely no running game. I didn't watch the game, so I can't really comment on their offensive line. How well they can dominate the line of scrimmage. Essentially, I can't comment on that. But how do you're not rebuilding. How do you come into the season and get washed out by a team who, like up to 2 weeks ago, didn't, like, the world had no idea who their starting quarterback was going to be. If the new head coach, mind you, had any sort of inkling that he was going to start the sophomore quarterback, like there were so many questions around the Eagles, and the Eagles looked so polished and ready and buttoned up for week 1. And the Falcons were just an absolute mess once again. At home, 32-6. It's beyond a joke now. I feel like they might not even be the biggest losers, but they are my biggest losers in week 1.
That you make a strong point. You made some strong points there with regards to the Falcons. The Falcons, as I said, the Falcons, like we
every year.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
I know we kind of did something to them in that 28-3, right? But golly, it's like they just have not recovered. The Falcons have not been good since that.
That is very true. So, Justin, who is your biggest loser for this week?
I hate to make it sound like I only watched one game all weekend, but like just by score alone, like 38-3, you lost by 35 points. That is the biggest margin of defeat. But when you look at the everything that surrounded the game going into the game, you had the off-season drama that everyone knows by now. Then all these veteran players that I mentioned before, from Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Robert Tonyan, all of them make it seem that this is their last season in Green Bay and are referencing the last dance. So everyone is looking at this team like, this is Green Bay's last dance. And, you come out, you hear Devontae Adams talk about he's not being around a hungrier group of guys. Matt LaFleur decides not to play a single one of them in the preseason with the hopes of keeping them fresh and not losing them for this supposed title run. And this is what you do. This is what you do. And this is not a team, forget what the players have put on themselves. This is a team coming off of back-to-back NFC title game appearances. This is a team that led all the football in scoring, led it in touchdowns, in touchdown percentage, in red zone touchdowns, red zone percentage, in time of possession. Just look at the players that you had. I hate for anyone who had any of these players in their fantasy, from Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams to Aaron Jones. But you have not arguably, you have a top 3 quarterback and a 3-time MVP in Aaron Rodgers. You have the best receiver in football in Devontae Adams, a top 10 running back in Aaron Jones, the tight end that led all tight ends in touchdowns in Robert Tonyan, one of the better offensive lines in all of NFL, a head coach who has put his stamp on the offense where it led the league in scoring and time of possession. And you put up 3 points. On the flip side, as I mentioned, all the players who are no longer playing for the Saints or are injured, and they can list them again. Drew Brees is no longer there. Jared Cook is no longer there. Emmanuel Sanders is no longer there. Michael Thomas is out injured and now with COVID as well. Tre'Quan Smith was hurt. So, me and my infinite wisdom knew going into this game, your game plan should be to stop at least one player. And that happens to be the jersey that Ken is wearing right now. Like, if anything else, you should know, locate 41 on the field no matter where he is. And in the first half, the Green Bay Packers could not even put a hand on him until 5 yards after the line of scrimmage. It was as unprofessional a performance I have ever seen from this unit. And I've been watching this team since 1994. I do not think I have seen a more unprofessional performance than the one I saw on Sunday. It is clear the Green Bay Packers were not prepared. Both the players and particularly the coaching staff did not come prepared. And I mean by prepared, not meaning that they were not practicing. They did not game plan for the team that was in front of them. That much is clear. You did not come schematically to deal with the New Orleans Saints. This is a team with title aspirations, and you come out and lay a 38-3 clunker comfortably, easily, by far and away, the biggest loser for the entire weekend.
But when you look at the point differential, I cannot disagree. And it'd be remiss of me to disagree, but it's my Saints that put the hurting on your boys. But AJ, when you made mention of the Falcons, I did not even think of the Falcons necessarily as the biggest losers because for the main reason that nobody has any expectations for the Falcons whatsoever.
Which is true. I just had to get that off my chest though. The Falcons are disgusting.
Yeah, so wait a minute, AJ. You beat them after trailing 28-3 and still have the temerity, the balls to come out and say that they're disgusting.
Like I said, the reason is right. Being bad is one thing, but not having a plan while being bad is even worse. That is my connection with these. Like if they were moving on from Matt Ryan and it was that they were in a transitional period, cool, I get that. But they're not doing that. So what exactly is the plan? That is my main issue with this organization at this point.
So I'm actually differing from both of you with my biggest losers. Like, again, I did not anticipate, and my Saints would have lost the game. So the fact that we won, regardless of the scoreline, it is still just one win. So it feels great. It feels fantastic. However, I have two teams that I have tied for the biggest losers this week, and both of them are the biggest losers for the same reason. The first one is the Minnesota Vikings. The second one is that organization that you, AJ, your jersey that you have on there right now, the New England Patriots. No, both of these teams are not expected to be the best in their division. But the best teams in their division got knocked off this weekend. They had an opportunity to put down a marker and lay claim to the fact that, yes, we are going to be a force to be reckoned with in this division. Now, first, the Vikings. The Vikings are playing against one of the historically worst teams in the NFL forever. They're playing against the Bengals, who, let's give them their credit, they look a lot better this season than they have in seasons past. However, if you are the Vikings, you're supposed to go in there and beat them with 2 touchdowns. You're supposed to be able to control the line of scrimmage. You're supposed to have a good defense because you have a defensive-minded head coach who likes to run the football. They ran the football, but they didn't do much else. And they allowed the Bengals, they had to come all the way down the field to kick a field goal just to get into overtime, and then they still lost. So the Vikings are definitely up there for the biggest loser. But then the Patriots. The Patriots, we know all of the talk that has happened since the final cut day and all of the uncertainty that surrounds the Patriots organization, especially around that offense. But you are at home. You are at home against the Dolphins. You don't beat the Dolphins at them, but you don't lose to the Dolphins at home. But somehow you decided that we're going to come out here and we're not going to be able to put up enough points against the Dolphins at home to where now a last play fumble then scuppers your last opportunity to try to pull your fat out of the fire. When you look at what happened with the Bills went and they didn't play a good offensive game against the Steelers. The Steelers found a way to win that game. At least this gives you an opportunity to get a leg up on them in the standings. But now we have the Miami Dolphins as the leader of the AFC East.
Remember I told you, Ken, I dropped the Bills a peg back in the AFC standings because they did not address the 2 areas of concern. And guess what? It came back to bite them in the behind.
Yep.
You cannot beat the Steelers with that pass rush with TJ Watt dropping back 51 times. That is ludicrous.
Yep.
Absolute madness.
That was
impossible. You're asking to lose, and they did not get better in terms of rushing the passer. They added Rousseau in the draft, but that did not help any. Big Ben looked comfortable all game. The Steelers played mistake-free football. But you are not going to beat anyone not able to run the football. And the funny thing is that the Buffalo Bills were actually getting some measure of success on the ground, and they decided to go away from it. Mm-hmm. Dropping back 51 times is not a recipe for success. And I remember I told you that, Ken, this Buffalo Bills team that everyone is jumping on the bandwagon, this is a peg back, but we'll talk about the 2 teams in the AFC that I still have above them.
Okay. No problem. So then, no, let's look at a team that lost, but should feel encouraged by the manner in which they lost. So, Justin, I'll start with you. We know they said there are no moral victories in the NFL. However, this is be one of 18. So, who should feel okay about what happened this week?
So it's funny enough because you mentioned AJ's Patriots as the biggest loser. And I too do not believe in moral victories, but they're one of 2 teams I think that should take a moral victory simply because the Patriots are not known for turning over the football, pre-Cam Newton at least. And they were in striking distance of winning that game were it not for Damian Harris's untimely, unnecessary fumble. I honestly believe were it not for that fumble, we are talking about the AFC East leading Patriots. And why that should be a moral victory per se is that there were so many question marks around your ability to win these tough games throwing out a rookie at quarterback. And so you want a hot take here right now? I dropped it on my show on Monday night, and I'm coming here now. For all 5 rookie quarterbacks from the first round played, all 5 scored touchdowns, if you all didn't realize. Yeah, all 5 actually scored. From what I saw, and this is weird, and I'm going to go for a huge overreaction, Mac Jones has the ability to have the best career of the 5. He does not have the most talent by a mile. Like, obviously, you see all the other 4 with cannons for an arm. The other 4 are extremely mobile, can make plays with their feet. But if there's one thing the greatest quarterback of all time has taught me, which is Tom Brady, in everyone's estimation, must believe, it is the intangibles that make you a great player at that position. The ability to read quickly, to read defenses, and to get the ball up quickly. And we saw that from Mac Jones. No mistakes, 29 of 39 for 281, a touchdown and no interceptions. I think Bill Belichick, well, he's a guy who does not believe in moral victories, has to feel good with taking that, question mark out of Alabama. I think we are talking a different scenario were it not for Damian Harris's untimely fumble. And believe it or not, how about them Cowboys? Like, were it not for Greg Zuerlein being the awful kicker that he is now for whatever reason, we're talking about the 1-0 Dallas Cowboys. Like, they got, I want to say, 4 turnovers off the defending champs. Dak Prescott looked as good as, like, he didn't miss any time whatsoever. If you ask me who was the best player on the field for that entire game, I tell you Dak Prescott. The Dallas Cowboys had absolutely no right losing that game if Greg Zuerlein does not miss the 2-point after attempts. If he doesn't shank that easy 30 whatever yarder, we are talking about the 1-0 Dallas Cowboys going into Tampa Bay, into Raymond James Stadium, defeating defending Super Bowl champs on ring night. Yeah, there are no moral victories, but I think the Patriots and the Cowboys have to feel good about their chances moving forward.
So, AJ, who do you have as your moral victors this week?
Well, Justin, first of all, I need to thank you because thanks for that uplifting diatribe about my Patriots, because I couldn't say it. I was extremely crestfallen. Damian Harris had been so consistent for the entire game. It was really hard to watch that happen. Like, anyway, so thanks for that. Also, I just wanted to add, I like the Cowboys pick as well. And DeMarcus Lawrence had a really good game on the defensive side of the football as well. No, my pick is going to surprise you. And I have to say no, because you're not going to hear me talk about this team for the remainder of the season. My moral victory is the Detroit Lions. Yes, the Detroit Lions. And I'll tell you why. The Detroit Lions were down at halftime. They were down. Let's see, this is 24-7. This is what, 32? 24-7, 31, sorry. What am I saying? 31-10 at halftime. No, if you're looking at that score at halftime, you're thinking, all right, this is the same old Lions. You don't need to watch this game. No, we all 3 of us here believe that these men downgraded at quarterback. We have a lot of question marks about their head coach and his kneecap biting self. And we know that the Detroit Lions are the worst organization in the NFL since they let go Jim Caldwell, right?
Yes.
At the end of the game, the Detroit Lions had brought this game back to within essentially 1 possession. And they actually made it a contest. The Detroit Lions, and mind you, it's not like they were playing necessarily a scrub team. They were playing the Niners, who was supposed to be like the one of the teams that is ready to compete for the NFC and get back to the Super Bowl where they were just a couple years ago and whatnot. Listen, I had to say these, man. There's no, Justin Ken would tell you, I don't even like to discuss or broach topics that mention the Detroit Lions. I don't even get into long conversations about them because there's no need to. But this time,
I will tell you, don't turn on your TV on Monday night then. That's all I'm saying.
I have to. After your game, I have to see your team play. It's more so to watch your team play. But But I do think now that because of what I saw from the Lions in week 1, they will be encouraged and they could put up a better fight. Mind you, they could still potentially go on 16. This is Detroit Lions we're talking about. But I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind if they made some of these games more exciting, just the way they did in week 1. I think more victory-wise, I would have to say the Detroit Lions for week 1.
So, just like how your pick of the Lions is a surprise, because I would have never guessed that you would have gone with the Lions ever, especially, I mean, when you take into consideration the division that they're in. My pick might surprise you. Now, for the viewers, we can let you behind the curtain in a second. We haven't talked about this. We haven't named these teams to each other. So you're seeing honest reactions right here, right now. So my team with the moral victory is the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, wait, what? Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was not expecting that whatsoever.
Apparently.
Go on.
So,
go on, please, I need to hear this.
So the Cleveland Browns, they played the Chiefs really, really close in the playoffs last season. As I mentioned in the opening, this was one of the playoff rematches that we had in week 1. And I expected that the Chiefs were going to come out and look like the Chiefs from the beginning of the game and put the Browns under pressure. We know that the Browns want to control the clock. They want to run the ball. Therefore, if you put the Browns behind the 8-ball and they have no to chase the game, then they can't run the football. But the Chiefs didn't do that because the Browns didn't let them do that. The Browns were harassing Patrick Mahomes for the majority of the game, especially in the first half. They were running the ball literally down their throat every possession. Nick Chubb was doing as he felt like. Kareem Hunt, going back to Arrowhead, was doing as he felt like.
He seems so in such a jovial mood. Like he was really enjoying it.
Exactly. The Browns had that game exactly where they wanted it to be. Then they had a mistake with the punter who, as they said, even though he dropped the snap, if he had not panicked, he would have noticed he had enough time to just pick the ball up and just kick it down the field. However, he panicked and decided that he was going to try to run with it, and he got stopped, which put the Chiefs in fantastic field position. You don't do those things to teams with Patrick Mahomes. No, there was a bit of a discussion, and you, AJ, you and I disagreed on the interception that Baker threw. I do not believe that Baker Mayfield went to throw that ball away, because if he was going to throw that ball away, he would not have been scrambling before he threw the ball. He tried to make a play and threw it right into a man's hands. It was an extremely poor pass, and it was emblematic of why I am not high on Baker Mayfield. But to his credit, up until that point, he had played a good game. The Browns, in looking at the entire situation and looking at everything that they've been able to accomplish thus far and what they've been, how close they've been able to play the Chiefs twice, no. They should feel like if they have what it takes to beat the Chiefs. No, feeling that you have what it takes and actually accomplishing it is two different things. But when they now look at the rest of their division, the Steelers didn't look good at all. The Steelers still couldn't really run the football. Ben, while he wasn't getting that much pressure, wasn't really hitting his receivers, especially down the field. So the Steelers don't look good. The Ravens, they just had a crushing loss against the Raiders. And then the Cincinnati Bengals, well, yeah, they won the game against the Vikings, but it's still the Bengals. We don't expect great things from the Bengals. So they should know, looking at the landscape, they should tell themselves, okay, we have what it takes to not just deal with our division, but we know that we can run probably the best team or the best offense in the NFL, and we can probably beat them. So they should be taking heart based on what happened this week.
I feel they shouldn't, Ken, and I'll explain to you why. For everything you just said, is the reason they should have gone into Arrowhead and won that game. You control time possession as usual. That's how you beat the Chiefs. You ran up to 22-10 score. You kept, Patrick Mahomes quiet for the most part. Granted, there's nothing you can do when Patrick Mahomes is scrambling, doing those backyard plays. Like that touchdown that he just tossed up in a prayer for Tyreek Hill to adjust, come back to football. There's nothing we can do about that because that ball is dreadfully underthrown. Here is my reason why I do not feel that the Browns should feel good about their situation. That is a game you should not have lost. And once again, mental mistakes. You have to play situational football. You panic. These games against the Kansas City Chiefs and the rest of the contenders in your division are going to come down to one or two plays. Just like I remember coming on this show and talking about Rashard Higgins' fumble. That game is lost there. And again, this game is lost on 2 plays, not like 5 or 6, 2 plays. And that's what it takes to beat the best teams. As you said, Ken, correctly, had the punter not panicked and realized he still had time to get off a punt and just didn't have to catch the ball and whatnot, you don't know, the Kansas City Chiefs may or may not have scored there. You don't give them that short field, and Patrick Mahomes may not have converted. But, and here is a problem with the Cleveland Browns, as much as I love how they're constructed. I told someone up till last week, I love how they're built to run the football, to control time of possession, to take the ball out of the hands of Baker Mayfield. I like how their defense is being restructured. I like their front 7. I love the additions of John Johnson. They have a corner. I keep forgetting a slot corner that they brought in. And they spent some draft capital on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and Greg Newsome. The problem comes at the quarterback position. I told someone, if the team is going to rely or need Baker Mayfield to win it on a last possession late in the 4th quarter, they're going to lose. So said, so done. Because Baker Mayfield is not that dude. And you know that you're not that dude when the offensive game plan is to take the ball out of your hands. You are not that dude. Baker Mayfield is a capable player, but if you're going to rely on him to win you a game in the 4th quarter, the chances are you're going to lose it.
You know, that now leads us right into the last question in our Blitz this week, the most concerning win. And I'm going to start this one because what you just said, Justin, takes me right to the same team that I have picked for my most concerning win this week. And that's the San Francisco 49ers. Because as you said, if the game plan is that we're not going to let our quarterback throw the ball, you know where we first saw, you know where the first place we saw that? The San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs. Leading up to that Super Bowl game against the Chiefs when they lost. Jimmy Garoppolo is still not that guy. And their defense, you would expect that their defense, because their defense is supposed to be strong, it's supposed to be solid, it's supposed to be built, you know, from the lane going back. But we know we've had some issues and some concerns with regards to their secondary. How do you lay 33 points to the Detroit Lions when just over 2 minutes to go in the game, you are up by more than 2 touchdowns? What is that? You have to be concerned if you are the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I actually had another team picked for this, but I'll keep them because I'm sure they're going to come back up again later on in the season. But for sure, my pick for the most concerning victory, or who should be the most concerned, even though they won, is the San Francisco 49ers. So, AJ, I'll give you second crack at this one, though.
All right. I don't know. I don't know if this might surprise you guys, but my most concerning win for week 1 is actually the team that won last night, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. And I'll tell you why, because as much as I said I was not surprised that they were there and abouts coming to the end of the game and won. And Ken, I don't know if you remember my video. I did say that this game was going to be tight, right? I just thought the Ravens would edge it, but I knew it was going to be a tight game. I called that much. You know why it's the most concerning win for me? This is the same thing that the Ravens did last year. They won their first 2 games. One of them was against the Saints. At some point in time during the season, the Ravens were the Raiders were 6-3 and ended the season at 8-8. So I'm not really buying all the dogged nature, the doggedness and the tenacity that they showed in week 1. until like they have to show me everything through the entire course of the season. I love what I saw for an individual game, but in terms of them of it transitioning into them being like some sort of playoff team, I'm not buying it. I think it was a one-off game right now. I'm just not convinced that the Raiders are still that team because the generally, like you mentioned that the defense looked better. They did. Chucky really seemed to have a game plan this time, especially on defense. We mentioned how they got after Lamar, and it was really good. Offensively, you could see that Derek Carr was trying to force the ball down Darren Waller's throat because he clearly does not trust anyone else enough. So never mind that speech at the end about how hard Zay Jones works and he works harder than anybody else on the team. We all know that you only trust Darren Waller. That much was evident, right? Mm-hmm. So they beat basically an almost crippled Ravens team who are dealing with some serious injuries coming into week one. It's still all credit to them, but to me, that's the most concerning win because I'm not buying that the Raiders are a better organization at this point.
Gotcha. I do not disagree. So, Justin, who's your most concerning win this week?
AJ kind of stole it from me, so I'll piggyback quickly. It took you...
Sorry.
It's fine. It took you having the Ravens to miss their 3 best running backs to even make this a contest. And still, the Ravens should not have lost this game. They were up, 14-0. Derek Carr looked absolutely atrocious in the first half, or at least the first quarter, especially against Blitz. They figured it out eventually. And still, look at you don't go into overtime without Lamar Jackson fumbling the ball in the fourth quarter. And then you don't take the lead with them until Lamar Jackson fumbles again in overtime. So as much as we're talking about this defense is much improved, is it really? Because if Lamar Jackson protects the football, we are probably talking about a 31 to whatever defeat. And giving up 31 points is not a good defensive performance. Sure, they got after Lamar Jackson, but as Jeff Saturday correctly said, this team's line is not built to pass protect. They want to run the football, and they couldn't be looking to run the football because they were down again on Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Justice Hill. And clearly they don't think that Latavius Murray is up to speed. That is not a good win. And that interception in the end zone, well, the ball did go through Hunter Renfro's hand. My God, Derek Carr, you have been in the league long enough to know that is not a rocket pass. You have to put some sort of touch on that pass at the front of the end zone. No one is marking Hunter Renfro there. That is an atrocious pass. But the other team who should not feel good about their victory is the team that AJ played. Because last season, we all heard about how Miami is this playoff team that is ready to make some noise in the postseason. And they still didn't get in then. And they should not have won that game had Damien Harris not fumbled the football with the go-ahead score right in front of the Patriots. You're this veteran defense on the road against a rookie quarterback playing his very, very first start. And you had to eke out a win on a Damien Harris fumble deep in fourth quarter. And that is arguably the second or third best team in your own division. And you've not even played the Buffalo Bills. You've not played the Kansas City Chiefs. You've not played the Cleveland Browns. You've not played the Baltimore Ravens. And this is what you look like against a rookie quarterback. I am not convinced by either Miami or Las Vegas. And here's my next hot take. I do not expect to see either of them in the AFC playoffs.
Well, I think that take is harder for the folks down in Miami than it is for the Raiders, because I don't think I didn't have them penciled in to make it to the playoffs for sure.
Not the Raiders, no.
The Raiders, just like the Bengals, just like the Lions, just like the Jets, they gotta show it before anybody is putting them anywhere. So yes, that I believe we can put a bow on the Blitz for this week. Now, we wanted to touch a bit, especially for my boy AJ, because we had That's What He Said last week when we talked about Rob Ninkovich talking about Cam. Now, this week, Cam had something to say himself. So, AJ, tell me what you think about what Cam said.
So I'm kind of torn about his entire situation, about that entire not his football situation. I should say more so this interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually tried to watch it today. I couldn't finish it because I kid you not, like his father was extremely irritating to watch. He would not let Cam finish a sentence and was trying to basically navigate him to go down a particular path. So it was a little hard to watch. But with regards to what Cam said specifically about the situation, to look at it holistically, I think what he said, I guess he handled it well enough. However, my issue comes here where I think this is an entire spectacle that didn't need to happen. It didn't need to happen. Like, yeah, looking at the fact that it did happen, what he said, I understand where he's coming from. However, we could have done without this. That's the honest truth. And to be fair to him, again, his Funky Fridays thing is not just, he didn't just start this for, this wasn't like the decision, LeBron James, the decision, just making like one little special to address the situation, right? He actually has like a little production where he uses YouTube as his platform to address certain issues. Mind you, they're usually non-football issues, it seems. However, given what he was going through at this point, I understand that this is the one thing he wanted to address, but I still feel like this did not need to happen, Ken. If and going to the fact that he chose to do this, right? Even if you wanted to do this, here's my biggest issue, the biggest issue with it. Why didn't you do this with like a accredited journalist or something like that? Why is it your father? Cam knew what he was doing by bringing his father on, because it's not like Cam just reconnect with his father. He alluded to the fact, you know, like Cam, he grew up with his father. He knows his father very well. He even said during the interview that when he got the news, he called his father from the facility. So he's well aware of how his father feels. And listening to this entire thing, you know that his father is more bitter about Cam being cut by the Pats than Cam himself is, right? So why do you have your father on this to create this entire overblown and exaggerated spectacle and bring more attention to yourself? If you're trying to get a job in the NFL, a closed organization where you know the owners are going to be looking at you with a side eye because of all this, what's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of doing this? Is it just a fad now for everybody to speak their truth? Was it necessary? Honestly, I know y'all could kind of see I'm getting a little heated now because I really don't feel like any of this needed to happen. You're a professional footballer, you got cut by a team. All right, put your head down, do some work, and try and get another job. Why does it have to come to this? I don't even want to discuss specifically what he said because he didn't necessarily say anything wrong, Ken. But my biggest issue is the fact that they had to come to this and he had to bring his father on to basically be the fanboy and say that the one thing that every single Cam fan around the world is thinking at this point and try to disparage your organization in a sense. Like saying stuff like Bill named Cam. At no point in time did Bill name Cam the #1 starter for this season. What Bill said is that, well, because Cam was here last year, obviously, well, he basically he's like the front runner for the job, but every position is up for grabs is a competition. It's up for grabs during the preseason. How does that translate to Cam being the #1? And then we're going to hear this, him bringing his father on to say this in some Funky Friday spectacle. I'm just really annoyed by the fact that this had to happen. We could have done without it. Honestly, Cam, we could have done without it. We could have done without this.
I hear you loud and clear. Justin, what were your thoughts about Funky Friday?
I'm with AJ. It didn't need to be said. It didn't need to happen. What Cam did say, the actual words, there were nothing wrong. Like he did say what we've been hearing, that the reason he was cut is because of his stature. The locker room would have followed him, and you don't need a rookie having the aura or the presence of a former MVP standing, directly behind him. If you make mistakes, at any second you could be pulled, et cetera, et cetera. So I had no problem with him saying it, considering that we've heard that from inside reports. I'm with AJ. It didn't need to be said. But again, I remember on this same show, the initial problem was what Rob Ninkovich said. And it is not just what he said, but the context of what he said and where he's saying it from. It all goes back to race. And I'm almost certain Cam would not have brought this up had Rob not brought up this, and nothing that we can confirm or deny right now, that Mac Jones had to teach him the playbook. And well, a lot of people would think that's disparaging because it's a rookie teaching a vet. I think the more disparaging point is the racial aspect, because we keep hearing, or we keep being fed this point that Black quarterbacks are only good with their athletic traits, that is, white quarterbacks are smarter, are more intelligent, and have a better understanding of the position. And I think that is the reason, without Cam using the word race, I think that's the reason why Cam felt the need to push back against the narrative. I'm with you, AJ. He should not have.
But Justin, his dad did it. His dad didn't shy away from addressing the racial component of this entire thing, you know. His dad, and mind you, and I agree with you as well. That component, I maybe in some respect he wanted to address it because of that, but I don't feel like it needed to be all of this. That's my issue. Right. Even if you do want to address certain things, like for me, like do it a little more with a little more tact. I don't feel like this was the right way to address this kind of situation, knowing that you still want to be a part of this league. But sorry, go ahead.
No, AJ, you're right. Personally, you should just let go. You just have to hear certain comments and let them hit the ground. Because the unfortunate situation is there will be certain people who will continue to hold these beliefs. And no matter what we say, no matter what we do, that thinking will not change. As I said, like I agree with you, AJ, it should not be said, it should not have been addressed. But my issue is Rob Ninkovich actually saying it. And that is my problem, because the comments come with weight simply because he is a former player within that locker room. So it will come over as what he is saying is undeniably true. And no one has come out to say this is facts. The unfortunate situation, Rob Ninkovich being a former player and being on the worldwide leader of sports on ESPN, making these claims further lends to the narrative that white quarterbacks are more intelligent than black ones.
So, I mean, you guys have very well elucidated on this Funky Friday thing, so I really don't have much to add. Cam wanted to say something. Cam wanted to go on camera with a hole cut in his hat and his lot sticking out like antlers. Cam did what Cam.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, Cam did what Cam wanted to do, and that he has taken up this mantra where he is going to do what he wants to do. He's going to look the way he wants to look, and then you have to be able to back it up when you get on the field. And he's not been able to do that these last couple of seasons. So I don't know that's
another thing. Like, I'm glad you made that point, because I want to piggyback off of that real quick, right? Sorry, this is my segment, you know that. So just let me piggyback off of that point, right? That's the thing, right? I think the biggest issue in all of this is as Justin alluded to, the fact that Rob Ninkovich made those statements. But Cam is not shy, not a shy person on social media. Like, he doesn't shy away from social media. He addresses certain things there. I feel like even a simple tweet, like even laughing off the notion of that could have sufficed, as opposed to it being this. Because I think what people are overlooking are these simple points, right? Bill Belichick has a certain system that he likes to play on his offense. Mac Jones is more suited to that system. Mac Jones came in and he showed that he is learning the playbook well enough, and he has the tangible and intangible traits to fit into what Bill Belichick requires in his system. Cam does not. Cam was always an outlier to our offense. The offense has to look different to facilitate Cam. And among all of these points, Cam was not at his best last year when he was at us, and he hasn't been at his best for a little bit. I think the footballing aspect of all of this is being lost on a lot of people because of the whole racial component of it. I understand that there is a racial aspect to it, but we could leave it at football and just there is an actual argument for the man not being on the team because of footballing reasons. It didn't need to be all of this.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. So that's what he said, and that's what AJ had to say about what he said. So now, before we get out of here, fellas, we have week 2. Week 2 is upon us because tomorrow we have another game on the telly, and that's the battle of the NFC East, with the Giants going to visit the Washington football team, both of these teams coming off of a loss. I will not bother you with that particular game, but
Please don't.
we have a full slate of games. We have 16 games on again this week, but weeks don't start just yet. So, Justin, we will start with you. Which game or games, 2 games, are you most looking forward to this week?
I have a number of them actually. First, Raiders and Steelers, 2 teams who had no business winning their football. Well, Steelers, yeah, they played mistake-free football, so let me not be unkind to them. But I want to see the Raiders, Steelers simply because, you get to see how good or how bad the Raiders really are. I don't think Monday night's game is a fair indication. Let me look down here. Rams, Colts. I just want to see, because I had the Colts as a team to make some noise in the AFC, but depending on which Carson Wentz they can get, and that Rams defense, as we've seen, is no joke. Bills, Dolphins. I want to see how the Bills respond to adversity, because I don't believe in what the Dolphins are trying to sell me. Cowboys, Chargers. I think that is going to be one heck of a game. 2 quarterbacks playing extremely well, 2 very talented rosters, and I want to see just how good these Chargers are if the AFC West is as good as they are purported to be. But of course, really, everyone wants to see if the Ravens can really finally actually make a game against Kansas City. Of recent history, since Lamar Jackson has been drafted, they have not found a way to beat Kansas City. Far less not even being able to beat Kansas City, they have not even been competitive. At some point, now you're playing at home, you have to put up some level of resistance. And if you're going to make noise, since Lamar Jackson has been drafted in, I want to say 2017 or 2018, the Ravens have made the playoffs all 3 seasons. So clearly their goal cannot be just making the playoffs. To get to the Super Bowl, you have to go through the team who has been in the AFC title game the last 3 seasons. That's a team that's coming to visit you. You are going to have to show the ability to beat this team, at least be competitive. So that's the game I'm most looking forward to this weekend.
AJ, what about you? Which game tickles your fancy the most?
So Justin mentioned a few, and some of those I had my eyes on, but with respect to time and not wanting to go over what he said, I'll just give you the 2. Personally, for me, obviously, I need to see my game. I need to see us play the Jets. We'll be at them on the road. After losing at home in week 1, and as you rightfully said, Ken, we only put 16 points on the board. So regardless of whether or not the ball was fumbled and we had a chance to win, we put 16 points on the board in 4 quarters. That needs to be a lot better, right? So I need to see how we bounce back against the Jets, because I really had us winning the game against the Dolphins. So no, I'm not even going to. I still feel we can win this game, but I need to see a little bit more. So I'm going to be locked in on my game from kickoff to the final throw of the game, or final run, whatever it is. And the second game I would say is the Titans at the Seahawks, because I for one, I'm on record saying that I did not think that the Seahawks would be as good this year. Russ started off with a bang. That part is not surprising to me. They seem very solid in week 1. Very good win against the Colts. I'm really sorry I had Tyler Lockett on my bench. But yeah, and then obviously with the visiting Titans, who now are supposed to be, pun intended, but the Titans in their division, and have like their wide receiver core, like none of their offense worked last week. So I want to see how they recover this week, because to go 0-2 is not going to be pretty for them in their division. So and obviously in the Seahawks division, to be have a 2-0 lead, that will not lead, but to be 2-0 at start of the season that way is going to be really good. So those two games specifically for me.
Okay, so when I look through the schedule for this week, of course, I will be very interested in seeing what my Saints are able to do to follow up when we go on the road to Carolina, but it is the Panthers, and we should beat the Panthers. So that's not one of the picks that I would make as the game that intrigues me the most. In that early window, it is the Rams versus the Colts, because the Colts are supposed to have a good defense. The Rams looked really good playing on Sunday night. So we need to see if they can follow that up. But of course, when you have Matthew Stafford, who is willing to throw the ball all over the park, anything is possible. And the Rams have to show it better with their run game, definitely. So that is what I'm going to be paying attention to in that early window. In the late window, then, I mean, honestly, these games really don't set your heart racing. I guess the Cowboys and the Chargers will probably be the one that has the most intrigue, because there is Justin Herbert, who had some struggles early on playing against the Washington football team, but for once the Chargers were on the right side of a close game. And then you have the Americans team, the Dallas Cowboys, who have an elite offense, and the defense is still very suspect. So that game should put up a lot of points. It should be very entertaining. So we'll see what happens there. And then, well, I mean, none of us picked the Monday night game, because, I mean, the Packers, they have to do better than what they did.
Enough about the Lions today.
Yes. So the Chiefs and the Ravens, for all the points that were made before, yes, that game is definitely the one that we will definitely have to keep an eye on for the primetime games on Sunday. So that now brings us to the end of another show. I believe that today was a good therapy session. We had the boys on the couch for various things. Justin was able to get off his frustrations with his Packers. AJ was able to talk about Cam and get that off his chest as well. Justin, as always, we are glad to have you. Anytime you're willing to be here.
Pleasure. It was a pleasure, JM.
Hey, whenever y'all ready, whenever y'all need, you just give me a shout. I trying to clear my Tuesday night schedule to make sure that I am on the show. But always, the pleasure is mine, really. Anytime you get a chance, to talk football, especially with Barbadian brothers, yeah, you don't turn that down.
It is true. So remind the folks again where they can find you.
As I said before, we are not an audio-only podcast, so you're going to find us primarily on YouTube. That's hashtag This Just In. Do not confuse us with the thieves over there at ESPN and Matt Kellerman's new show, This Just In. No, we actually debate proper stuff, so that is hashtag This Just In on YouTube. We are live every Monday night at 8 o'clock sharp, 8 o'clock Eastern. And if you're not able to see us live, don't worry. The episode is up there on YouTube. And we post every single day on Instagram. Again, hashtag This Just In. You can find us there. So YouTube, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern. If not, just go to YouTube and rewatch the episode. And on Instagram.
All right. And for everyone, of course, you can find us, the GreenBaje podcast, on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube, as well as everywhere but Apple Podcasts.
I was just about to ask, has Apple not fixed y'all yet?
No, that still has not changed. We still can't get onto the Apple platform. I probably have to send them an email and ask them what's up with that. But of course, GreenBaje, we have the Fantasy Spot, which is going to be aired tomorrow, and we are going to be looking this week at the heroes, the GOATs of week 1, and then we will look in ahead to week 2. So that brings us to the end of another show. As always, that is AJ. Again, today we had Justin from This Just In. I am Ken, and we will see you next time.